This week, we start the second book of the Torah, Shemot. Shemot begins after Joseph has moved his family and the rest of the Israelites to Egypt to escape famine. Joseph rose to power because he assisted Pharaoh in a time of need, and so the Israelites gained special status in Egypt. Yet, as Shemot begins, we are told about a new Pharaoh, Asher lo yada et Yosef, who did not know Joseph. And because this Pharaoh was unaware of the relationship between his people and the Israelites, because he was scared of this people unknown to him, he chose to deal shrewdly with them, oppressing and enslaving them. Tradition tells us that every spring, when we retell this narrative in the context of Passover, each person in every generation must see themselves as part of the story. We share this tale twice a year, both in our Torah cycle and around our Seder tables, because knowledge of past events is crucial. Not only do we need to hear about these events, we need to put ourselves into the text. Researcher and analyst Lisa Moss Phillips writes, "The Jews are a storytelling people. From antiquity to the present day, the Jewish people have been referred to as people of the book. Jews are also a people of the spoken word and have a rich oral tradition of personal and family stories, as well as sacred texts and traditional folktales. Storytelling is a rich part of our Jewish tradition and continues to be an ongoing, effective way of transmitting a cultural heritage and thereby of sharing the values of a people. We love to share stories with one another, and the idea of retelling is prominent in our tradition, whether it is reading the same Torah over and over again each year, or delivering our favorite tales amongst family and friends. This goes hand in hand with our Jewish value of memory. We are told to never forget our history so that it won't repeat itself. We cannot forget what has happened to us because we must share it with future generations. The past is one of our best learning tools. Though the story of slavery and redemption that begins this week in Shemot is a familiar one, it is not a comfortable one. It is painful to hear about how our people were oppressed by the majority in a place they thought was safe. We don't like thinking about our ancestors working long hours in the hot sun in horrible conditions. It is especially tragic to contemplate the senseless murder of babies that Pharaoh commanded and that God then inflicted on the Egyptians. But we need to continue talking about and reliving these events. They too are part of our history. Being a storytelling people means not just discussing what we like about history or our favorite stories, but continuing to pass down all of it, even the challenging parts that we'd probably prefer to shy away from. And of course, because we are determined not to forget, we know that history does tend to repeat itself. In 1923, Yiddish playwright Shalom Asch wrote a play called God of Vengeance. When it debuted, the play was censored in New York as it was deemed indecent because it contained the first lesbian scene on a Broadway stage. In 2015, playwright Paula Vogel's show called Indecent, a behind-the-scenes account of that first play, which also features mainly Jewish characters, had an award-winning run on Broadway. And last week, just up the road from us at Douglas Anderson School of the Arts, this play, Indecent, was canceled for the same reason that Ash's play exactly 100 years ago was canceled, because of mature content that the powers that be felt was not appropriate. History has repeated itself again. Student Madeline Scotty, who had been cast as one of the leads in the play, shared a video on Instagram after the cast learned that the show had been canceled because Duval County Public Schools was censoring them due to mature themes. While each student had permission from their parents to act in the play, and had participated in shows with mature subject matter and sensitive themes before, what has changed is the recent Florida bill limiting discussion in schools about sexual orientation and gender identity. or as many call it, the Don't Say Gay bill. Duval schools deny that this bill has anything to do with their decision, stating that it was the adult dialogue in the play that was inappropriate for high school students, and that led to the cancellation. In her Instagram video, Scotty declared, 100 years, 100 years, and we are still fighting the same injustices that Sholem Ash and his company did. Tonight during rehearsal, our company was notified that the school board is shutting us down, not because of, but related to the ideas stated in the Don't Say Gay bill. Indecent, she says, is a story about how detrimental censorship is, about how its damaging effects can ruin a nation and a community. I don't need to point out that irony. As a rabbi, this is also concerning to me because the play is about Jewish people and includes Jewish themes, and its narrator ultimately perishes in the Holocaust. A sad and uncomfortable story, but one that needs to be told, especially with growing anti-Semitism and senseless hatred in our community and around our world. Playwright Paula Vogel commented this week, "We know this historically. The first step towards totalitarianism is censorship of the arts. It's burning books, it's closing down theaters. In all societies, as we go towards fascism, the arts are labeled as degenerate. That's the conversation we need to be having." Vogel has suggested that rather than canceling the show, there could be facilitated conversations about the Holocaust, gender, anti-Semitism, and censorship afterwards, in order to use art as a learning experience. She has now even volunteered to come to Jacksonville with the show's original director and cast members to perform and lead those conversations. Hopefully this event can turn into an educational and enlightening experience for everyone involved and for those of us watching from near and far. We Jews are a storytelling people. We treasure telling and retelling and telling again. We learn that each of us and every person has a story that deserves to be told, not hidden, even when that story is uncomfortable. We have lived the dangers of ignorance and discrimination. We cannot be like that Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, whose chosen blindness led to fear, slavery, and senseless death. Otherwise, history will continue to repeat itself in horrible ways. We must continue telling stories that push our boundaries and strive to educate us. In every generation, we not only discuss our foundational story of slavery and freedom, but see ourselves as having made the journey of the Exodus from Egypt. In every generation, we strive to share our tradition and heritage, even the unpleasant and uncomfortable parts. In every generation, we must pass down all of the stories that we hear so that we can continue not repeating the past, but learning from it.